So hi, we're here with Andrew Kaufman, who's the author of Born Weird, our latest City Line Book Club pick. And we're thrilled that he's here to join us today, and we thought we'd ask him a few questions about the book. You ready?
Yes.
Good. All right. First up, let's talk about the Weirds. They're definitely one of the strangest families I've encountered in fiction lately. How did you come up with the idea for this family, and did you seek any inspiration from your own family?
It's a hard question to answer because they aren't actually that much like my family. Everyone thinks that this is autobiographical, and I kind of take that as a compliment because it means, like, even though they're very outlandish and very eccentric, they kind of have that ring of truth, right?
Yeah.
So the only character in the Weird family who is directly based on someone from my family is the grandmother, the shark, who is pretty well one-to-one to my paternal grandmother. But other than that, they really just, it was strange. It was one of those things where they came all at once. Over the course of a day, I had the idea of the blursings. I knew that there were 5 kids. By the end of the day, I knew what all their names were and what all the blursings were, and so I went from there.
And do you have a favorite Weird family member?
Yeah, I love Kent. Yeah. Kent is definitely my favorite.
Why Kent?
He's the one that, from a writer's point of view, I really liked the way Kent came together because he seems really one note and monotone because he's just like this big, strong guy who gets mad, basically. He's kind of like a Hulk guy. But then he has, like, other times he just surprises you with things he says or things he's thinking or some perspective on a situation. And I feel like it still is in character, that even though he says something unexpected, it still makes sense with who that guy is. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, that made me proud to pull that off, right?
As you should feel proud. You also mentioned the blur scenes. That was one of my favorite aspects of the book. For readers who are just getting there, it's the combination of a blessing and a curse. And I'm wondering where you came up with that idea, and also, what do you think your blur scene is?
Okay, so curse and blessing is something pretty, not exactly an original concept, so I can't really take a lot of credit for that. The word actually was something that just came out that Lucy said first. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you get in a zone where the characters really do feel like they're talking and you're writing it down, right? Mm-hmm. So the word blursing was one of those beautiful moments where it's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I didn't even think of that. You know what I mean? Like, not to congratulate myself, but, and then, I think writing, I always answer this question by saying actually being a writer is a blursing because it's like, it's a vocation, not a job, right? So it's like, it gives me a lot of self-esteem, gives me a lot of confidence. It's a fantastic thing to do with my day. It really feeds my soul and who I am as a person. Also not the most lucrative profession that it's definitely not being a doctor or being a stockbroker. So yeah, there's like positives and negatives. The plus is that I get to sit in a room by myself all day and just play with these imaginary characters. And the negative is that I sit in a room all day by myself and play with imaginary characters, right? So
definitely a plus and a minus. And then occasionally we drag you out in front of a camera.
Yes.
So another thing I thought was quite interesting in the novel, I mean, the Weird family is originally from Toronto, but you take them all across the country. I mean, they've all start living in different parts of the country, and then they go on road trips and plane trips and everywhere. It's it's a very cross-Canada novel. Was that always your intention with the book, to cover the country so much, or is that just kind of how it developed?
Well, the Weirds, when they're teenagers, late teenagers, have a really bad thing happen to them, and I really felt like that they would scatter. And I also felt like that they were the sort of family that wouldn't leave the border. They'd still stay within Canada. So part of that was just throwing marbles on the floor. And it's like if Kent stayed in Toronto, then Richard was going to get to Vancouver. You know what I mean? The space. The other thing is that I've lived in Halifax and I've lived in Winnipeg, and my wife has a lot of family in Vancouver. So these cities I know really, really well. And I just like that idea. I like that idea of what happens inside each of those cities kind of has the flavor of that city, right? So the strangest stuff happens in Winnipeg, and the sort of most laid-back stuff happens in Vancouver. You know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff. And then I'm totally rambling, and I'm sorry about that.
No, keep going.
I love the road trip, right? The road trip is the modern quest myth, right? So it's not it's not Argonauts in a boat after a golden fleece. It's like a guy and a girl in a car trying to buy tickets to some rock show in the States, right? Like that's it's the same arc, just with different numbers in the equation, right? So yeah, I've written a couple road trip books now, so I love them. I really love them.
We love reading them, so. So I guess the last thing I do have to ask you is, can you give us any little hints on what you might be working on next? Do you have something in the works at least? Can we look forward to something soon?
Soonish, soonish. And you know what? I can give you a title. How's that?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So the title I'm working with right now is "The Flightless Birds of Euclid Avenue."
Flightless Birds of Euclid Avenue. Another Toronto novel?
It is.
Euclid Avenue?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
Great.
yeah.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it. Well, thank you very much, Andrew, for chatting with us today. And be sure to tune in for more great City Line Book Club exclusives with Andrew in the next coming weeks. Thanks.